Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. Guerin Emig, Sellout Crowd columnist, here to do Mind Games, my weekly program on the Sellout Crowd Network, where we climb inside the heads of some of the principal figures of sports in and around Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and parts in between. Today, we're off to Stillwater to visit with an old friend, Barry Hinson, who you know from basketball circles probably as much as anywhere else. He's moved up in the world. He is now an associate athletic director. It tells me that I'm doing something wrong, man, because I've been doing sports writing or sports broadcasting for as long as I've known you. Here you are, an associate AD.
Yeah, there's a lot of letters after my name right now, but
Man,
I promise you this, Guerin, I'm still the same guy I was when you used to interview me doing basketball. So 41 years of basketball, and I jumped to the administration side.
we go back a ways, man. I used to do radio in Tulsa, and just to give people a sense of our relationship. Don King, mutual friend who's a veteran of Tulsa radio circles, brought me over to ORU once upon a time to meet Bill Self. When you guys were still at Oral Roberts, and Bill was still at ORU. We go into Bill's office for a minute or two. He's great. I don't know if you've heard this. Bill's pretty media friendly, media savvy, right? So I'm thinking, if I don't cover their games, I might buy tickets, that kind of deal. And then Don says, "There's someone else I think you should meet." I say, "Can't get any better than Bill." And then he brings me into your office, and you're practically giving me, you how much merch can I? You want a T-shirt? You want a koozie? Do you want right? Do you want a? I mean, it was unbelievable. If Bill hadn't sold me on what you guys were up to at ORU, you finished the job. And so that gave me a first glimpse into the mind or the personality of Barry Hinson. You probably don't recall that day, but I sure do.
Well, I recall giving a lot of merch away because there wasn't anybody wearing ORU stuff at the time. So we were just trying to get anybody that walked in, hey, you need a T-shirt? We'd like for you to wear this. But yeah.
You were doing okay for yourselves. You and Bill had it going. Then Bill got it going at TU. You got it going at ORU, and then you've gone and done different things, only to reemerge, only to separate again. We'll get into that a little bit later. But let's tell people, what you're up to. You're an associate athletic director in a job that I take it involves more than patting boosters on the back and kissing babies, because I see NIL as part of your job title. So this actually sounds like, 15, 16 hours a day, man. What's going on?
Well, it can be. It certainly can be. And there's a lot of traveling. I tell people all the time that NIL is much like running a political campaign right now, but we don't have an election season. Our election day is every day. And, about a year and, Guerin, we're probably into 2 months, but a year and 2 months ago, they came and asked me if I'd like to do NIL. And the first response was no, and the second response was hell no. And I didn't know really anything about it. I was just like everybody else right now.
Yeah.
I wasn't educated enough. And then they really told me the story of Ed O'Bannon and what happened with EA Sports. And I was familiar with that a little bit because that was certainly the time, as you just very well mentioned, when I was with Bill at Oral Roberts.
Right.
And then when I was at Southwest Missouri State, which is now Missouri State, I can remember signing a contract for my name, image, and likeness on a sports game. And I can remember that, I think I made $78, which was divided up amongst the whatever there was at that time, 320 some odd Division I coaches. I like to tell people that Mike Krzyzewski and I had the same contract. And I really like to repeat that often. But the sad thing about that was I remember vividly they were using my name, image, and likeness as well as our players, but none of those players received any of that money at the time.
Right.
And looking back, when they reminded me of the story, I'm the one that thought of the story of myself. And when I came home that night, I don't mind telling you, guilt hit me pretty hard. And I'm thinking, I was so willing to take that $78 check that was through the NABC and whatever sporting company was doing it at the time. But I didn't even think about the student athlete because I was like everybody else. They were getting room, board, books, and tuition. And never did I think that it was something that they should be able to receive. And I actually felt guilty about it. And
Mm-hmm.
if we wanted to get right down to it, what pushed me over the top was the biggest thing was the opportunity to stay here in Stillwater and to work for Chad Weiberg and to work for the institution in which I went to school. And I'm out of coaching. I've had the opportunity to be a head coach again. Finally, I matured. I checked my ego in at the door, and my wife is happy. My children both my daughters live in Tulsa, and my grandkids are in Tulsa. And so,
Okay.
we're going to die in Stillwater. And I'm probably going to die first. It'll probably be an episode on Dateline or 48 Hours. But my wife's probably going to kill me. But that's, there's worse ways to go, I guess.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. I worry about any associate AD whose job is related to name, image, and likeness. I worry that's going to kill a man or woman. I thought maybe I came into this podcast wondering if this was actually a tougher job than squeezing 20 wins out of ORU once upon a time. I mean, what?
Well, it's easy for me to answer that question because there's two areas of NIL, and one is the collective, and I'm not part of the collective. It's illegal for us by NCAA rules to be any part of the collective. And if you want to get right down to it, collective is pay for play. When we sit here and blow smoke at you, we can cover up all this stuff, and it's quid pro quo, and all these kids are doing something in order to receive their check, but basically it's money raised to pay these players. But I'm on the fun side, and I really don't feel the stress because I get an opportunity to not only promote 13 athletes like I used to, but now I have 572 student athletes along with Cheer, Palm, and Pistol Pete that we get to somehow promote their name, image, and likeness in order for them to make money. I'll give you a great example. The little girl at LSU, and Guerin, first of all, when you're my age, everybody's a little girl. But the little girl at LSU, Olivia Dunn, has really done an unbelievable job. She made $3.4 million last year, or at least that's what was reported.
Right.
And, this little girl is doing gymnastics and jumping around in some yoga pants. And that yoga company's figured out real quick that this little girl can sell stuff. And the student athlete, can help us make money.
Mm-hmm.
LSU's got a basketball player that's done phenomenal. And congratulations to her for all the things that she's doing, not only for her, but for LSU.
Angel Reese, you're talking about, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, Caitlin in Iowa is going to make an enormous amount of money in NIL. And I go back to this, and this is an argument that I tell people all the time. NIL, if you want to get right down to it, unless you're what I would refer to as an A-list or a star athlete, the NIL has really benefited the female student athlete because they don't have the same opportunity as most of the males do professionally once they graduate, whether it be overseas play, Canadian Football League, arena football, whatever. They don't have the same opportunities as baseball and minor league, rookie league, all that. So you're looking at professional softball. They're not going to make that much money doing that. And to be in the WNBA now with the global anticipation and what is going on there, it's really hard for female athletes to make money. So now all of a sudden they're reaping the benefits of name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
And they're making money for all those AAU, all those club trips, all those mom and dads, personal lessons, private lessons, taking them, dragging around all the way around the country in a station wagon, or not a station wagon, but an SUV. I showed my age there. But you get that situation where finally they get a little bit of payback. Yeah. So I'm actually on the good side. And to be honest, when we go, if you're a business and you ask to meet with me about NIL, the first words out of my mouth are, how can we make you more money? And that's the way we look at it. And we know that our student athletes can drive your business. We had a student athlete last year that set up with a coffee company here in town, an Oklahoma coffee company, not a national one. There's nothing wrong with the national coffee companies, but if we're going to support anybody, I'd like to support an Oklahoma coffee company. Right. So Aspen Coffee reached out to us. They got one of our basketball players that drank coffee there every day and said, all right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll set you up on a coffee a day, free coffee, and if you'll just do social media posts and you'll try to drive business here, we'll see how this goes. it went so well that they end up signing the entire women's basketball team, because all those little ladies and all those people that drink coffee that supported cowgirl basketball stopped going to the national ones and decided, you know what? Because of these young ladies, we're going to go drink coffee at Aspen Coffee. And that's how that works. So to me, that is true NIL. That's what it's been made for. And, you know, we've morphed. We morph every day. It's fluid. This changes. I mean, we're going to get a new ruling from the NCAA tomorrow on what we can do more to help the student athletes. It's ever changing. We've started a jersey program, and a jersey program is basically a T-shirt that mimics the jersey of what they wear in competition. Now, you're a sports reporter. I can see your mind racing, and you're thinking, okay, how does that work for equestrian? Well, equestrian doesn't have a number, but we put the number on the back, 24. And it looks just like a jersey number, and it has the young lady's name on the back. And on the front, it has cowgirl equestrian. We'll do the same thing for track, softball, baseball, whatever sport we have. And Guerin, we sell those for $26. And of the $26 that each one of those jerseys is sold, each student athlete receives $11.65. Now, I'm not a great math guy. That OSU math, I didn't do real great in the classes, but that is an unbelievable percentage that comes back. There's a national company now that sells jerseys, that they're selling football jerseys for $140. The student athlete, Guerin, makes a little bit above $4, and after taxes, it's in the $3.50 range. Well, that's not right. So we figured it out. We're going to create our own, and we're going to figure out a way to do this where our student athletes can make money. They get on social media. They promote it themselves. Their parents, their families, they put it on Facebook. It's all over the place. It's on Instagram. They TikTok. They dance around in it. And the next thing you know, their jersey sales go up. And it is absolutely, in my opinion, the greatest learning laboratory that we have outside of the academics that they do every day. They get educated on taxes. They educated on savings. We basically take a little bit of Dave Ramsey approach. We teach all our student athletes the 40-40-20. 40% needs to be saved for taxes and whatever else is going to go on. 40% you need to just, if you want to spend it, go spend it, and put 20% back for savings. We're teaching these student athletes this right off the bat. So, you know, I have this saying, and you can help a lot with this because you're in the media, and I believe this. And, you know, I've had a few quotes out there that have been quotable in my day, but NIL is not a 4-letter word. And I mean that. It's not. There's nothing wrong with it. The people that are upset right now are upset because of the transfer portal. They're upset about the amounts of money that they read in the media. And I would say most of the time, those amounts aren't even close. It's kind of like fishing in Oklahoma. There's never been a guy in Oklahoma that caught a fish that was 6 inches long. It was always a foot or longer. It's just the way we live.
Right. Everything, Barry, everything you've told me goes in line with what I think everyone thought would be right in the NIL world in terms of allowing an overdue opportunity, to your original point, an overdue opportunity for college athletes to make money off their name, image, and likeness. That it would trickle down and give Olympic sport athletes and Title IX athletes in particular chances, not as visible as your football players, your men's basketball players, not as visible and therefore not as many chances at exposure and therefore revenue streams. Everything you've said in terms of the work you can do legally as an AD, an associate AD at OSU, falls in that category. What I'd like you to do is delineate, you mentioned this a little bit ago, delineate what you can't do in terms of collective, in terms of pokes with a purpose, in terms of the idea that that's the pay for play that has coaches and administrators uncomfortable with where NIL is headed.
Well, let's talk about the first biggest can't that you can't do. You can't visit with a recruit or their family and tell them a specific amount of money that you're going to offer them in order to come play at your institution. You cannot take a player of your program and say, if you do this, rush for this amount, hit this, so many strikeouts, that we're going to pay you for that. You can take whatever is aligned with pay for play, and you cannot make any promises in those regards. That's the rule. I'm very comfortable in saying that at Oklahoma State, I'm very comfortable, Guerin, saying this, that none of our coaches do this. Matter of fact, you've seen Mike Gundy really talk about this recently in the media, that we're not doing that. We know for a fact that it's being done. We've seen it. We've read text on student athletes' phones that is being recruited from Oklahoma State, from other institutions. We've seen that. You know, I got tickled that I was on a call with the NCAA, and one of the NCAA enforcement agents said he was at a baseball regional in which the host of the regional was visiting with student athletes and their parents from other teams participating in the super regionals about transferring and giving them numbers of NIL.
Wow.
Now, I will say this. I believe this in my heart. The more extremes that we have reported, the more extremes that we dig up will allow us to move faster in the process to get where we need to get. I believe that in my heart. I've got a funny saying, and no disrespect to Alabama or Georgia, but if Alabama and Georgia, or if Alabama continues to get beat and Georgia gets beat because of the collectives, then we're going to see new legislation move a lot faster. I promise you.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to a question, Barry. Has this gotten so far off the original intent that the answer is to accept the new reality and come to a better, more realistic grip with, well, maybe there should be some allowances made with regard to collectives? Maybe universities should become more involved, or can we still, dam this as in if the thing's getting the zone's getting flooded, can we still build the dam so that this stops, right? And that, or at least slows, and that it doesn't get the NIL ideal isn't abused, if you want to call it that, in the way that it is being abused. Which is the better? What's the more realistic direction here? Is to stop? This is not what we intended, or well, we should have probably seen this coming, so let's just legislate in reality. If that makes any sense, what do you think?
No, it makes sense, but I think we have to go back to the Supreme Court ruling. Now, we live in an age that nobody can get along and nobody can ever agree. But you had a Supreme Court ruling of 9-0. There are not a lot of Supreme Court rulings that are 9-0. So 9-0 ruling on the Austin case absolutely told the NCAA where they stood. And that is without a doubt in the question for the benefit and the health and welfare of student athletes. So we know that, number one. The second thing is, and I want to tell you, there's not a administrator or a coach at any institution right now in the United States of America that belongs to the NCAA that is not on top of the mountain, screaming at the top of their lungs, singing harder than Julia Andrews in Sound of Music, asking an organization, please help us. We are everybody is joined in hand, and we know that. So I'm going to tell you my opinion. Whether this takes fruition or not, I don't know. I do think we're trending in the right direction. I do think we have a president of the NCAA in Charlie Baker that realizes the significance of this. I do know for a fact that he's put together a committee. The reason I know that is Chad Weiberg, our athletic director, has been selected to represent the Big 12 athletic directors as a representative of our conference. He has already been actively involved in those meetings. When we meet, as we did today with the head coaches, he let us know that we are moving in a positive direction. And what that direction is, Guerin, I don't know, but I think the best way to describe it would be we're headed for parity, that everybody plays under the same umbrella and the same rules. Obviously, the Power Fives have an advantage here. The conferences that I coached at most of my life, the mid-majors, I really feel for them. We have two issues here. We have the transfer portal issue where mid-majors and low majors have now slowly and surely become farm club systems for the high majors. That's an issue. That's a problem. The NCAA is right now actively telling people the waiver process is not going to be as easy as it has been. Now, I just made that statement, and then the Attorney General at North Carolina went after the NCAA, and the NCAA goes, oh, my bad, we'll make sure that the kid's eligible now for North Carolina football. Don't think that 49 attorney generals in 49 other states recognized what happened there. But I do think that we are trending, moving towards, we're going to find something else. I'll be shocked. Nobody's told me this. Nobody's led me to believe this. I will be shocked that we don't have new legislation by the spring for next year's academic calendar. I'll be shocked if we don't have something going on.
As it stands right now, let me ask you a point-blank question that might be tough to answer, and you do the best you can here, Barry. But if you say that OSU coaches are letter of the law when it comes to offers, things, promises, money, that anything that is other coaches at other schools are leveraging when they're recruiting with regard to collectives or NIL, pay to play, however you want to put it. Point blank, is that how much of a disadvantage, given the landscape as it stands right now, is it to be by the book? Does it put your coaches at a disadvantage just in the way the landscape is right now?
Well, I think if you and I'm going to say this, Guerin, I'm a firm believer that if we want to take, and I can't remember how many Division I football programs we have now, 117, whatever. But I would be willing to say of 117 football programs that I would be confident saying 90 of them are really following the rules and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
That's more than I would have guessed. That's more than that's an interesting assessment because I would have guessed maybe the opposite because I'm a skeptic.
Well, and there's different ways to sell a used car. We all have, there's nothing wrong with bringing a recruit on your campus and a family on your campus. And what they'll do is they'll say, well, what are you offering here? Well, we're not offering your son anything, but let me just say this. Your son is coming in and we're recruiting him for this position. Mm-hmm. In that position last year, this is what this young man made in that position. Now that's just code that's a way of you can offer. You can always refer to what has been done before. You don't have to talk about what will be done. And they have to read between the lines. So I do think we're headed where the NCAA is going to say, I don't know, I don't want to use the word cap because then we get into antitrust stuff. But I do think that eventually we're going to get to a point where the NCAA is going to say, okay, we get it. This is a voluntary organization. Your conference is voluntarily a part of the NCAA. You would like to participate in our championships. If you don't want to participate in our championships and you want to do something on your own, feel free to do so. But if you're going to participate in the NCAA championships, these are the rules that you will abide by. And conferences will get together and they'll just say, okay, we're going to abide by these rules. What's interesting is that we've let our federal government and state governments get a sniff of this, and they're starting to mess around with it. Now, I have more faith, this will be a bold statement for me, I have more faith in our presidents of our NCAA institutions than I ever have in our federal or state legislators right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that our our presidents of our institutions along the NCAA will figure this out. Because what we don't need is we don't need intervention from our federal government or our state governments right now. We got bigger issues. Yeah. I'd like to tell you that sports is life, but it's not. Yeah. We've got problems in our country. Sports doesn't overrank homelessness. Sports doesn't overrank our inflation. Sports doesn't overrank joblessness. You know what? You guys take care of that shit and let us take care of the sports. Yep.
you're preaching to the choir there, man. You really are. I worry here, Barry. I tell you this: if in fact the lawmakers and the people we elect to do the things you're talking about, instead of worry about name, image, likeness, and things that could have been solved by the NCAA decades ago, if they realize that their priorities are in order and that they're going to turn it back on the NCAA and the member institutions and the conferences, then there are going to be certain institutions, if not conferences, who say, well, instead of figuring out a cap to this or a way out of this under the NCAA rules to play in NCAA championships, we're going to go form our own band, right? The break off that everyone's kind of anticipating, 30 to 40 programs break off and do their own thing. You know what I mean? Where you can see that, right? I mean, that's where I worry that we'll reach and NIL will play a role in it.
I don't see 30 or 40, Guerin, because you have 5 Power 5 conferences, and I think there's some. Let's take 2 teams that are dear to my heart because I know the guys there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take Creighton basketball and Gonzaga basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Non-football schools, Villanova, non-football at the Division I level.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do with those schools breaking off basketball-wise and all that? So I think it is somewhat of a conundrum, but I can see another division coming into college athletics. I don't think people want to talk about that. Obviously, the NCAA basketball tournament pays the bills. You can say all you want about college football, but the NCAA revenue, at one time, 84% of all revenue was created by the NCAA basketball tournament. If you get rid of Cinderella, if you throw her out where she can't come to the ball, it'll be interesting to see what problems we have. Mm-hmm. I don't have the answer to that. I do think that Cinderella makes this ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping and praying that Cinderella is not going to be a Rutgers out of the Big Ten much than a George Mason. I'd rather see a George Mason than I would somebody at the bottom pit of the Power Fives be the Cinderellas, because that makes sports. And it certainly makes your life a whole lot easier when Oral Roberts University goes to the Sweet 16 in college basketball, the tournament. That's what makes this tournament.
Okay. Last thing, I swear, on NIL. When you have those coaches meetings, you said you had one this morning, right? Is that you said?
Yes.
What's the tenor like? I mean, how much frustration is there on this topic just when you have those meetings with your coaches?
Well, I will say this. Our frustration level is somewhat downplayed because of our athletic director.
Okay.
Chad Weiberg, if he was in a choir, he would be alto. He's not too high. He's not too low. We're never in a panic mode. Reed Sigmund is also our deputy athletic director.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those guys, they were 2 peas in a pod, I think, when they were born. Genetically, they may have not been related, but they're brothers the way they are. And so really, in all of I've not been in one head coach's meeting in the last 15 months that just hasn't been, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what I think will happen. And I'll let you know when it happens. And then if anything else happens, we'll talk about it the next meeting. And it's literally almost at that tone.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of input, maybe some frustration from the coaches, but Chad is so great to get feedback from our coaches, and our coaches feel very comfortable giving Chad their feedback, which I think that just shows you the dialogue is pretty good between the two.
Yeah. I get the sense that you've got the right AD for if we are not just, coasting into the next generation of college athletics, but Mach 6ing into it, and you might temperamentally, if nothing else, how he conducts himself between his ears. I think you got the right guy in a very important position.
I know, and it's not. I'm old, so they could come in tomorrow and turn me out to pasture. So I'd say bold stuff when you're my age, but I have never been more excited about leadership that I work for every day, and Dr. Casey Schrum and Chai Weiberg. I'm just now, and they're both. I think they would both be. They'd probably both be altos in the choir, but don't think for one moment that Dr. Schrum, she played softball now. She played college softball.
So I hear. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. She's not going to ever say it, but when she enters a meeting, she's walking there to kick your ass is what she's doing. I'll just put it that way. But she does it diplomatically. I'm not good at that diplomatic stuff. I tell you, Guerin, I've never in my life been a thermostat. I'm a thermometer. Chad and Dr. Schrum are thermostats.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I walk in to kick your ass. You know when I come through the door, he's here to kick my ass.
Dude, I remember. Listen, I know this for a fact. The one time I did a game of yours on the radio, filling in for Al Jerkins. We went to the ORU went to Southern Miss. I think it was December of '97, and you didn't win.
No.
I don't think I saw you say one word on the way home, but I saw your face turn about 6 different shades of red. So I know when you say I will kick your ass, I was just worried for your players at the next practice. Just based on that December game that wasn't even you were still trying to figure out what you had that year, and yet you were still just a little pissed off about that result once upon a time in Hattiesburg.
Absolutely. And Hattiesburg is, no disrespect to the people of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, but it's not one of your stops for a tourist. I'm going there to eat. I'm not going there to stay. I'll just put it that way.
Or to drink sweet tea.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Your spoon stands straight up when they serve you sweet tea.
No
there.
kidding. I had no idea what I was getting into until I asked for the sweet tea. You mean the real sweet tea? You really want the sweet? Yeah, the sweet tea. I don't know if you really want it, but you're going to get it. Oh my Lord! All right, let's get out of here with exit questions. Have a little fun. You already answered one of them, Barry. I was going to ask what job would get you back in the game, but you've already told me you're dying in Stillwater. So now think about this. What athletic director calls Barry Hinson and offers him a basketball job, and Barry says, "I thought I was going to die in Stillwater." But
well, maybe I would tell you this right now. If it was a Power 5 AD, then maybe. But if it's a mid-major, you got no shot, because I'm not going to go work my ass off every day to be a farm club for somebody else. So, those days, Scott and I talk about that all the time. Scott and I were very fortunate. We both won over 300 games. I'll make a statement.
Real quick, you're talking about Scott Sutton. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll make a bold statement here, and I'm going to stand by it. I don't think there'll be a mid-major coach that takes over a program right now that will have the opportunity to win 300 games. I just don't think you will.
Mm-hmm.
You may be in it now, and you will, but there'll be nobody in the last 2 or 3 years that gets started at the mid-major level, because Scott and I were blessed. There wasn't anybody robbing our cupboard every day when we developed good players. And I'm not so sure that if I went back to mid-major, which I'm not, that I would only recruit junior college players in the portal, and only reason I would ever sign a high school kid is if he dated a local girl and he lived 6 miles out of town and he worked on his dad's farm where he needed help.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Because I don't think you can, at the mid-major, I don't think you can sign a high school kid anymore and develop them. Unless, Guerin, you can do this. You could say, okay, you come here for 2 years and then you can go. Almost like you're a junior college.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. What is the one thing you ever regret saying to a referee during a game? Did you ever go there?
I wasn't that guy.
Okay.
I wasn't that guy.
All right.
I wasn't that guy. I never was. I regret that I wasn't harder on officials. I really do, because I thought, these guys were human beings, and every once in a while, if you just be nice, they're going to give you a call. Well, you can throw that shit out the window. That ain't right. that didn't work. But I had a great time with officials, and I always did something to start the game. I'll give you a great story. We're at St. Louis, and we've got an official from the Atlantic 10 at that time, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he was also an NFL football official. And there was at mid-court, there was a smoking hot blonde right at mid-court. And she had, I don't know if it was grandmother or mother, she's probably pushing 225, 250, whatever. And I don't know if you can even say that anymore legally. But anyway,
It's been
let me
said.
take
Too late.
let me take the Charles Barkley's approach. She was a rather big-boned woman sitting next to her.
Okay.
And so the officials all come up and huddle over it. Now, this is the first time that I ever had this guy. Ever. I've never had this guy before. And he comes over there in the games. We're getting ready to throw the ball up there. And I just said, hey, you see that blonde over there at midcourt? He goes, yeah, we've all seen her. And I said, you see the lady to the left? He goes, yeah. They said, good. I gave her your phone number. She's going to call you after the game.
You did not do that.
Yes, I did.
You could
He's
not.
laughing. He is laughing. He's having a great time.
Oh, my Lord.
And so we're at the end of the game. We win. It's at St. Louis. It's a big rival game. We win. And he comes over to me and he just says, hey, I stopped over there at midcourt while they're going. I just went ahead and gave her your number. I told her I was missing out.
You had it coming, man.
Yeah, I had it coming.
You had that coming several different ways.
No, but I was always that way with officials. Yeah. And, I'd call them, I'd call them by the wrong name or I just have fun with them. And, I'd always say something about my wife. I said, that lady that's screaming up there in the stands, don't worry about her. That's my wife. So it'll be okay.
Yeah. Favorite game you've ever, this should be easy. Favorite game that comes to mind that you ever coached in?
Oh, well, I have to go back to high school. I think it's what got my career started when Bishop Kelly upset Star Spencer right there on the middle of the floor at ORU Mabee Center. And, Richard Roberts was there. Oral Roberts was there. And if that game doesn't take place, you and I aren't doing this podcast today. I promise you that. So I would have to go back. And then there's been a lot of games that have been.
What year was that? The Kelly
that
game?
would have been in the 80s. So I'm trying to think here. I can't, probably 89, 90, somewhere in there.
All right.
Yeah. But Barry Lewis covered the game.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
Barry Lewis wrote an article. I think he called it the greatest upset in the history of Oklahoma high school sports. Yep. And Star Spencer, I think, was number one in USA Today basketball.
Oh, wow.
We beat them, and it was really a neat deal, 50-46. There's a kid that went to the free throw line, was a manager here at OSU for Coach Sutton named Jimmy Nichols, and hit 1-and-1. And I'll never forget coming out of the timeout. This is a stressful situation. And I said, Jimmy, if you don't make these free throws, I'm going to shoot your dog. True story.
You did not say that. There's no way you said that to the kid.
I did, and he turned around and he said, Coach, I don't have a dog. So, you know what? He stepped up and made 2 1-and-1s.
Oh,
it was awesome. Just one of those great moments. So I'd have to go back to that.
So Gene Hackman had Jimmy Chitwood. You had Jimmy Nichols.
That's exactly right.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, they're not going to. Hey, and I hope you're tracking with me here. They're not going to screw up the tournament, the NCAA tournament, and expand it, are they? Are they really going to do that? Or are you on the side of they should expand it? I hope I didn't speak out of turn. I don't.
No, you can't speak out of turn because I'm going to explain it to you in a different way. I do think the tournament will expand because when I started coaching, we were in the 200s, Guerin, of Division I programs. Mm-hmm. You can't keep a number and keep adding to it and not add, to the tournament. So I think you'll find out that, and I'm one of these guys, every year, if you want to go back to the RPIs, it says top 5 RPI teams never get in the NCAA tournament. I coached 3 of those top 5 teams. So, I've got a little bit of red ass here because I still have the lowest RPI team to never get into the NCAA tournament at a 21. Mm-hmm. Lowest since. Even this year, they still do RPI. They don't talk about it, but still, the lowest RPI to get in other than 21 is 27. I mean, at 21, Guerin, we didn't get in. They just wrote a 7-part series in Springfield, Missouri about how it was a travesty. And it was still a travesty.
Yeah, no, but I'm afraid that if they expand, all it's going to do, I don't think it's going to open up spots for what you're talking about. It's going to open up more spots for the power schools. That's what I worry about, is that all it's doing is taking room for middle of the pack power teams to have the coach meet his bonus or something like that of getting in a tournament that he doesn't belong in.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Matter of fact, I've always said this. It's you ought to be competitive in your league, and you can't come out of your league at 5-13 and still go to the NCAA tournament. Unless you win your postseason tournament. I agree with you there. I do. The only thing I would say about expansion would be arguing for my side of the leagues that I came out of.
I get you. No, that makes sense. I got you. I wanted people to think. So we call the show Mind Games, and you've given me and a lot of listeners something to think about. Not just about the tournament, but about a lot. Coaches talking to officials, spectators in the crowd, and of course, name, image, and likeness. That's why we brought him on. Barry Hinson, Associate Athletic Director in charge of NIL from an athletic director standpoint at Oklahoma State University, has been my guest on Mind Games. If you haven't done it, subscribe. You'll get this entertainment. Not this quality every week, but we at least make the attempt. So like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. You know the drill. Check me out on selloutcrowd.com. Me and my colleagues put out great content related to the Cowboys and the Sooners daily, whether it's written or in podcast show form. Thanks to our people behind the scenes, Jacqueline Musgrove and Michael Lane, for keeping us on the air. I'll do it again next week. Until then, be well.